Living the good fat life with your host Karen and Sherry. They'll help everything align for your body, soul, and mind. The good fat life. Whether change comes slow or dramatically, the good fat life will help you sort things out organically.
Every time.
Happy
Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday.
How are you?
Awesome.
Well, I think this is coming out on a different day than Thursday, but today is Thursday,
today.
real time.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And Veterans Day.
It's Veterans Day. Yep.
Yeah.
And look at this new magazine.
It's a beautiful day for Good Fat Life. We got our magazine, our new magazine.
Yeah. I'm loving it.
Yes. Gathering is the title of the issue. And if you'd like to get a digital subscription, you can click on our QR code or you can go to www.goodfatlife.com.
Right. Or you can text.
You can text
inspired
Yes.
GFL to 55678.
There we go.
Yay,
we did it. We remembered everything.
And it's just like high energy today. And we're so excited to have Rob Johnson as our guest today.
Thanks for that.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Rob.
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
First time in the guest chair. I hosted
First time in
once.
the guest chair. Yeah.
Is
How's it feel?
Oh,
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah.
not in the guest chair as in first time ever in the guest chair.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just with
Definitely
us.
not. Yeah, just with you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've done a podcast or two.
Yeah. Once or twice. Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for joining us today. Yeah.
So we should say that Rob is the owner of Speakeasy podcast studio
And Wayne Media.
and he's got multiple locations. And so we're just really excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love your guys' show. So it's,
Oh, thank you.
it's cool to be on things I enjoy. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and I love the fact that we have different generations here.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just really an interesting perspective, because Rob, we were talking earlier about dreams, making your dreams come true.
Yeah.
Whether it's personal, whether it's professional, and Rob had some opinions, and I'm like, wow, that's I haven't thought about it that way, and realized that's a generation thing.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at dreams, when you talk about people who want to go and do something with their life, what I've found is that what really matters more than the idea is how you're going to implement it. So it's kind of like execution matters more than the idea almost, because what I found is, especially in the age of social media, is that people are in this really weird time where you can have a lot of people support an idea thinking that the execution's already in place. And what will happen is people kind of live for that rush of people supporting the idea rather than for the self-satisfaction of actually doing something. And that's when you get people that say, I'm going to do this, and they don't do anything. They just talk about it. And that's why, I use the same line over and over. Like, we can sit around here and have 50 great ideas about the next 50 great businesses. But until someone actually picks up a laptop and starts hammering it out, it means nothing. Ideas don't mean anything at all. I mean, it's just an idea. It's a passive thing. It's a fleeting moment. What matters is the actual implementation.
Yeah. And don't you find, I've heard this too before, and I've found in my life that if you start also sharing your ideas that you don't have started the implementation yet, it kind of like scatters that energy too. It changes that energy too if you start saying things that you haven't thought through yet too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things I guess I learned in the corporate world is there was always people with the big ideas that really didn't have the skill sets to carry them forward. But so then you had people more like me that were good at execution.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not the big idea person, but I can get stuff done.
Yeah. I might be all ideas.
So you guys are a good team.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think with that, when you have someone who, like in a corporate structure, because I was in a corporate environment for almost 10 years, and it was very much that way. You have someone that says, hey, we're going to do this. Let's distill it down to the team. But even in that, even saying we have a team that can take this and run, that we can trust and we know, that is way further down the road than saying, hey, we want to redo this, or we want to make an app, right? Or I have this idea for the next Facebook. It's like, cool, man. Like, I have really cool social media ideas as well, but I just keep them in here because I can't do anything about them. and unless it's like a fun discussion, you're at the bar with the fellas, like there's really no reason to bring that up. And in a corporate environment, you at least have some structure. Like you have, a Sherry that can go and hammer on the project, and that's a variable in the equation. But what I find a lot of people, especially younger people in my generation, are doing is they say, I want to do a marketing company, or I'm going to start this, or I'm going to start this. And then they don't do anything about it. They just hype up the idea. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Like people, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're wasting all of everyone's interest is going to be on the idea rather than something you actually created. And you want people's interest to be in the creation, not the idea.
Huh. Now I'm thinking that through.
Okay, say that again. Yeah. You want people's interest.
Yeah, you want everyone's interest and excitement to be in the actual creation of what you're doing rather than just the idea, because then they can do something about it.
Oh, right. So,
because if it's just, if I say like I'm going to start a podcast on like, true crime in Lansing, Michigan, and I just say that, like people are like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Like, but if I say, hey, I've started episode 1, here's the trailer of this podcast, here's how you can get involved. Now they can do something. And they can both of those things can coexist together. But what I find is people are more excited about getting the idea out there than actually putting in the work and doing something about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And you're just inundated with 1,000 of these great ideas a day, right? Because we have so much exposure to everything. We're all coming up with these great ideas, right? With no execution.
Well, everyone wants the satisfaction of like, hey, I did something. Look at me. And this is kind of the generation that I'm in, which is the look at me, all eyes on me kind of generation. And we've really undervalued people that can go and execute and grind and do really, really meaningful things instead of people that just say, look at what I can think of. And it's like, well, cool, man. But like, no one cares beyond that idea. And you need to give them something to consistently care about. And that means executing.
Mm-hmm.
This is fascinating. I'm feeling validated because my brain works that if somebody throws out an idea, my head immediately goes into, well, how do we bring that to life?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I guess that's my purpose is how to support people bringing their great ideas to life. I call it herding cats.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm like, a cat, yeah. Thank God for Sherry's, because I am a person that has ideas, but I do need people like Sherry and people like Rob to herd.
Help.
Herd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting when I see someone at like a corporate level and they're like in their LinkedIn profile, it's like, I'm the vision caster. It's like, oh, so you don't do anything. And there's a difference.
Well, Rob, let's not say that.
Well, there's a difference because like even with you guys are a team that's working together, right? And even for me, like I have a team that works with me, so I have ideas and I know I have someone that can execute.
Yeah.
So, Karen, you might have ideas on Good Fat Life, and Sherry can execute. Mm-hmm. That is different than someone being by themselves and just talking about things and never doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You guys have an ecosystem where you can actually perform. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of people, they just talk about things and all this isn't beating up on people that just have ideas and talk. Mm-hmm. It's mainly how do we give people a framework in order to actually do something about this idea.
So, and that's a great point, because what I've learned is that lots of times people who have great ideas, right, their skill is their ability to generate the idea.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and then
there's the workers. That's their skill.
And that's their skill. And so it's that we all have our gifts, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my follow-up to what you just said about having a great idea is, so what's the next step, right? How are you going to bring that great idea to life?
Yeah.
And what happens is people go, I don't have a clue.
Well, the answer is organization. Like the answer is taking that idea and actually partitioning it in a way that makes sense to other people, right? The simplicity of an idea is when it can actually be implemented. So if I'm explaining like if I came to you guys and said, hey, I got this really cool podcast studio, just kind of trust me on the details and show up and record, like you'd be less interested in coming to do it. Whereas if I said, hey, we have this studio, you can come in and record. We have an engineer walk through the process. Like I'm actually laying out things that you can visualize, and then you have investment. Well, what a lot of people do is they'll give you the 30,000 foot view, and that's kind of where they begin and end. When a really good person that can cast vision and get somebody excited can partition that idea into digestible chunks that somebody can then go and do something about.
Then that's I know from fundraising and from those kinds of things, it's always like, and here's how you can support, right?
Yeah,
you can call this number to volunteer, or you can give money, or you can right. Right. No, that's a good point.
And I feel like there's a lot of individuals that are in this boat of they want the notoriety of having the idea, and this is very common in my industry. People go into marketing and they'll say, I have an agency, but they will take in the work and they will outsource it to India, or they'll outsource it offshore, and they'll say that that's their agency. That is not your agency. That is you being a middleman between a customer and really low customer service. That is it. And that's where you really need to have a framework for service in any idea that you have. Because an idea is never going to, if an idea is selfish, it's never going to spread. So every good idea is based in meaningful service.
And could you explain the meaningful service part?
Yeah, like how, like it's kind of like no business has ever survived without a sale, right? Mm-hmm. There's no business ever that's been like, hey, we've been open, but we've had 0 sales. and a lot of that is because a business is not ever one person. It's that person and a relationship with the customer. And that has to be built on a healthy foundation of service. And if it's not, then it's not sustainable. So ideas are the same way. Take Facebook. When Facebook started in 2004, it was a company that was built for college students, right? It was a networking platform for college students. Mark Zuckerberg had the idea of allowing people to share their experiences in the same kind of generational gap with other people. So while Facebook never monetized in the beginning, they never went for advertising in the beginning. It was a lot of crowdfunding and shareholders. Then they moved to advertising. It was based on how can we get people to network more efficiently? And that was an idea based in service. And that's why the most successful social media company in the world is because the foundation of that idea was built on service.
So, okay, so take that as we're all kind of processing.
Yeah.
So take that and apply it to a personal idea.
Sure.
So not a business.
Sure.
So you want to have a house at the beach.
Yeah.
Right? So what would that look like?
So again, it's having a house at the beach is going to involve some level of doing things for other people, right? No one's ever going to, unless you inherit a bunch of money or you hit the lottery, playing those scratchers, you're never going to have
which is always possible, right?
There's a possible. Right? It's possible I get struck by lightning when I'm sitting here right now. It's about the same odds probably. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about personal ideas and personal development is what I have found is in order for a personal idea to be successful, the main focus of your motivational drive needs to be outside of yourself. Because I'll use I statement, I am a very variable person. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Everyone experiences that, right? Mm-hmm. So if your motivational source is outside of you, my kids, my wife, God, whatever that might be that is motivating you to do an idea, that is an unchanging thing, right? So my motivation is fixed and I'm taking the variability out of the equation. So when you look at an idea, when you look at a dream or something that you want to do, there's 9 times out of 10, there's always going to be something else external involved. And again, that is going to revolve around service.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it. That totally changes the dynamic of it, right? Because if you're doing it for others, keep moving forward. If you're just doing it for yourself, you can give up or talk yourself in and out of it 1,000 times a day.
100%.
Yeah.
But there's also the strength about doing things for yourself, right? Because it makes me happy or it serves my purpose.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
That's a big part of it. Like, when you look at wellness, individual wellness, that is a big thing. Like you want to do something for yourself, but you're always going to land at the same question, which is, well, why are you doing it?
Right.
Why are you doing it? And what most people find is that why they're doing it is not they're taking care of themselves because one, yes, it does feel good and it's a very nice thing. But the second thing is when you have, some personal goals that you have, it's also going to be for somebody else. I want to take care of myself around longer for my family so I can enjoy life more, so I can serve other people better. Most people are not inherently selfish. Most people have a service mindset. They just don't really have a vehicle on how to do that. And that's where I think a lot of self-help kind of misses the mark, is because they talk about, you need to do things for you, and not really talking about the vehicle that can help you get there faster, which is ultimately going to be service.
So, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about self-mastery.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not selfish. That's being able to master yourself so you can show up your big best self all the time. And really, it's a lot of around service.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Right?
Because even that statement, show up for your big best self.
Right.
For who?
Right.
Yeah. Because because it's for you, like, who cares? Like, you won't care.
Looking good today.
No, and it is funny that you say it. Yeah. You mentioned that, Rob, because there's been days where I didn't have to go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe I had no meetings that day. It was an office day, right? And then, but I still go through my meditations and my stuff, and what do I want my day to look like? But it's different if it's just me.
Yeah.
Right. Versus I'm seeing clients or my kids or friends or whatever.
Yeah.
That is, I haven't thought about it in that way.
No,
before.
I love that idea, because especially now as I get older, I think a lot about being physically fit and how I didn't put a lot of stock in that when I was younger, but it just makes you realize how you have to be fit and show a whole, so you can be of service to yourself first and then to others always. Right. So that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really unique perspective that you gain when you realize that we were built for community, and everything that we do eventually lands on that, whether it's for your children, for your spouse, for your church, for your just local community members, whatever it is. That is what most people want to do. It's giving them the proper vehicle to do it, which is the challenge, and that's where I think a lot of self-help has really failed people. Is because they've focused so much on the personal, so much on the, you need to be the best version of yourself. They get lost in this almost narcissistic loop where it's like so much about you. You never insert the ingredient that's actually going to help them, which is community with other people. There's room for both, but a lot of times we isolate that community factor and focus on ourselves. And unwillingly or unknowingly, people end up becoming more narcissistic.
I was just thinking about what's that woman's name that started the business with the testing labs? She tried to act like Steve Jobs, and it was all really about her ego. That's a great example. She had blonde hair. There's a documentary about her. She wore black turtlenecks, and she changed her voice. It's the testing lab.
Yeah, and it just went to court because it was a big fraud case. I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, but she changed her voice, and she convinced all these people to put in all this money to have this testing lab, and it was all about her ego, and it just went completely south. So it's like a great example of when it just is about yourself and your ego, and you don't have the actual people behind it working for it. Just a disaster.
Yeah. What's really cool about community and self-help, and when you look at, I have this problem, or I need to lose weight, or I have depression and anxiety, when you really focus on yourself and you exclude other people, you're eliminating a lot of individuals that could help you through that process and come alongside of you. And it kind of makes it worse.
And they could even make it better for you.
Well, and I think that's one of the things, you're getting to the essence of it, right? With COVID. That COVID really
for sure.
Because it took us out of our ability to be with people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, there's just so much swirl and conversation around it about the price that we paid for that. Those little interactions and those little things. And I think one of the things that Karen and I have really enjoyed so much with Good Fat Life is it gives us a reason to connect with people in a deeper way.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
like, tell me what you care about, because what you care about matters to me.
Yeah.
And lots of times what you care about can help me have a better day or be better or help me solve a problem that's making my day less than it's capable of being.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's finding the things that, for me, it's finding the things that you enjoy, the things that you're comfortable with, the things that kind of give you joy, and then finding individuals that share that. So that's really important. Like my wife and I have a very similar joys in life, which is why I think we got married, right? That's usually a good thing to find, right? And when you find the people that are most interested in what you want to do, you don't want yes men walking all around you. You want people that will challenge you,
right?
But you want people that will be able to come alongside you when you're having issues, when you're having troubles, and even when you're starting dreams, like when you're starting ideas, whether it's personal, professional. It's nice to have the support system there and to give them something to support, right? If you just say, hey, I'm going to lose a bunch of weight or I'm going to start this diet, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. You're doing a gym membership next week. Cool. Talk to me in a month when you did it and let me help you. How do I help with that? You haven't given me anything to help with. You're just talking about it. It's figuring out how you can get people to buy into that idea to help you. And just talking about it isn't enough.
Well, how do you get people to buy into your ideas, Rob?
Well, one, you have to be authentic. Like, you have to be authentic about the idea, and it has to be earnest. People have a really good BS detector. And they also have a really good, kind of when you have, I call it the Facebook showcase, kind of like when you're putting the greatest hits out on Facebook or on socials, and it's all of this, look at me, I'm going to do this, therefore you will be proud of me kind of equation. And what's more meaningful is a really raw look at, I've been struggling with this. This is what I've done. I wanted to share the progress with you. Then people are more likely to buy in because they see the authenticity behind that idea. Personal, professional, it's the same thing. People want to buy into things that they care about. And now we're in a really interesting age where social media has done something very valuable to people that I don't think anyone has realized the full essence of quite yet, or not that many people perhaps. But social media has given people the opportunity to be more niche with their ideas and the things that they care about. So social media, people think, well, we're connected to millions of people, and it's very it's very formal. It's very kind of how's the weather, top of the line ideas, really nothing deep. But what social media has done is it's allowed people to curate the ideas and the things that they care about in a really deep way and connect with people that care about the same things. So it's actually forced us to go deeper with people in a much more narrow basis than we had ever before, which I think is one of the best things about social media, is that ability to curate things that you care about and go really deep with them.
That's a really good point. It kind of whittles that, carves it out.
But that's you have to be intentional about that, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, you got people that just kind of get caught in the infinite scrolling universe, and but it's given people an opportunity to actually engage in curation and be very niche about what you care about. But there's also risks too. You can get caught up in it, and you're all social media all day, and you isolate, and there's dangers with anything. But it's given us a really nice tool, and it'd be nice to see people use it well.
That's a really interesting perspective. Because what we hear,
how else would you find these people that are interested in the same thing, or even know?
It'd be harder, right? It'd be harder.
And I'm just thinking about, and it's a challenge too, because I'm just thinking about some of the groups I'm in that I really enjoy, and they're international. Right? Yeah. There's people from all over the world.
Yeah,
I did a workshop last week, and there was people from every continent. There were people up at midnight to be, participate, or 3 a.m. And
it just tells you how much they care about that idea.
And it was actually, that's so interesting you say that. It is pretty cool.
Well, you wouldn't bump into that person at Kroger, and stumble into that conversation. So yes, it's possible 50 years ago to have built a network like that, but it's not probable. It's much more probable now. And it's kind of like social media is the all-purpose brick, right? You can break a window with it, or you can build a hospital with it. It's really up to you what you want to do with that tool, but it's a tremendous tool. And people just misuse it a lot, and it gets a bad rap, and all social media is terrible. We need to delete all these apps. And it's like, well, it's the same thing with guns or knives or whatever.
Okay,
man.
I love that.
It's a tool, and you got to use it well. And if you don't blame the tool, blame yourself. Take ownership.
And don't you think people do want to be invested, because there is so much glaze over and so much like attention-seeking ideas?
Sure.
They want to be invested.
Well, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride, right? Like, people are kind of on the downhill thing where it's really exciting now, whereas before there's so much information overload. And I think everyone goes through this on a generational basis where you kind of get this informational overload. You're like, well, how do I find myself, or whatever you want to call it? Who am I? It's kind of the ultimate identity question. Mm-hmm. And as time goes on and people learn more, they figure out where their curation lies, and then they just develop that more, and they use the proper tools to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. How did you set out? Like, is this something your family taught you, or kind of was in you, or it's your personality, or did you take business course to find your way to how to plan this out? Or
not really. Ultimately, so when I grew up, I grew up in a very, just kind of very middle class household. It really wasn't, nothing crazy, nothing over the top, but really my education started when I met my wife. I was not a Christian when I met her, and she was, and then I became a Christian and started learning more about just identity, how identity lies. And a lot of that is just my identity with how God sees his people. And a lot of that resolves to me around why. Like, why are we here? Why do we do the things that we do? And what's our purpose? So a lot of that for me starts with that identity. And then it expands into that service. So I want to serve people extremely well because I believe that's what God has called us to do. And that's what I want to do, is serve well. So a lot of my identity is wrapped up into that because I have a desire to serve people extremely well. And any idea that I have, to me, needs to start with that, or else it's not a good idea. And everyone's got their own jam, right?
Sure.
Like everyone's got their own path that they follow. Right. Yeah. everyone's got their own, their own story and their own path. And for me, it's really important to keep hammering home this level of service and community that I think is not required, but it's essential. It's essential in order, and in my opinion, to have we'll call it a good life, is because a
good fat life.
Yeah, good fat life. Promo. So it's really important, because if we don't do that, if we don't have community with other people, we're kind of wasting one of the greatest gifts that we've been given. Mm-hmm. So
you have a blueprint from up above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is just centered around what should I be doing, and what's the right thing to be doing, and a lot of that is based in just this objectivity of moral responsibility that we all feel that we ought to do, and a lot of people just don't have the right vehicle to do those things. Again, whether it's personal or professional, it's a lot of it just kind of starts with why. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? And when you answer that why question, things get a lot easier.
So, and going back to that, I've always believed that if you have the why, right, the ability to make it happen is there.
Yeah.
Because that would be a really cruel thing, right? It's like, give you the why, the desire, the why, and then it's like there's no flipping way that you can make that happen.
Right.
But when you do, and you're open, that people show up. Well, that's totally a good fat life story. Is we had the why, and people come into our lives. You came into our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
And always at the right time.
And always at the right time.
Timing. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. I find that people focus a lot more on what they're going to do than why they're going to do it. And that's probably the biggest headline of what we're talking about right now, is people spend much more time on what than why. And if they flipped that script, things would get much, much easier.
Right. Because the what, or the how shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're clear on the why, right?
Exactly, yeah, because that provides the framework for everything you're doing, right?
Right.
If you say, hey, I want to be a father, why? Why do you want to do that? Well, I want to inspire a generation. I want to lead children in a meaningful way. I want to teach them where I went wrong and make the next generation better, which should be the goal.
It's a long lesson.
Right?
Or as my dad tells me, you're going to make your own mistakes, and then your kids will make their own mistakes, right?
Yeah. But that should be the goal, right? We want the next generation to do better, and a lot of times I think generations, and this always happens, you hear people say it, and it's easier to make caricatures of it. But it's like, well, the kids today.
Oh, yeah.
Right? These kids today. And it's like, well, it's your fault, man. Like, you raised them. Like, what are you complaining about?
Right.
Like,
well, but if you go back to Plato said these kids today,
for
right?
sure. It's a generational thing.
That's why he had to make the clay, give him something to do.
Exactly.
I'm on fire today.
Nice.
But point taken, right?
Yeah, well, it always makes you laugh, because it's like, well, you know, you're complaining.
That is hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be a good clip for this week.
Yeah, like, well, who does that?
Well, it's the whole thing of like, well, you're complaining about something that you had a hand in, like in some degree, you know, there's always going to be problems. But I feel like our job for the next generation is to make them better and to want things to be better and to not complain, but actually get in there and do something about it.
Right. Well, there's a lot of opportunity to jump in and do something right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And people just, they want to spend all their time, the people that are just really hard critics of my generation or the generation, below me, just sitting there complaining and, whining. And it's like, well, what's that going to do for anybody?
Yeah.
Right.
I have a good example of that. My nieces, they unfortunately just lost their mom, and they're twins and they're 24. And they are struggling a bit with, maybe being attracted to the wrong coping mechanisms. Yeah. So instead of talking to them and being negative with them or telling them they're doing something wrong, I decided it's going to be my goal to keep them close to the universe or God or whatever. So I'm going to just have a spiritual thing with them every week and just work with them that way. They're in their 20s. And I was just like, how about we just have a little spiritual group once a week rather than, you know what I mean? So it's like we do have to look at people, younger generations, and help them, Yeah. So that's what I'm doing to try to help. Yeah.
There's
safe space to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that. Like, people should be encouraged to ask questions and, ask these really difficult questions about, why did this happen? Why did mom die early? Why, you know? And a lot of times, we get into this mindset where it's like, well, this is what I believe. And if you don't believe it, then we can't be friends or we can't talk about it. And it's like, no, we need to talk about it.
Yeah. I know other family members kind of worried, we're worried about the girls, but I'm like, instead of worrying about them or telling them they shouldn't do certain things, I'm just going to be peaceful with them once a week. And hopefully, set a good example in that way. So, yeah. So we have to do things like that.
And with a judgment-free space, right?
Exactly.
I think that's one of the big things that's so important is if we can be of service in a judgment-free space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You be you, I'll be me, and we'll still love each other.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And we'll agree that we're going to have different opinions.
Yeah. Right. And the other thing too is social media has done a really bad job of creating something out of nothing. Because even that phrase in and of itself, when people are like, well, it needs to be judgment free. But however, if I have a difference of opinion, that's somehow a judgment, because what you just said, Sherry, is you have, you articulated it perfectly. We are going to have differences. My differences is not a judgment of you. Mm-hmm. It is me saying this is what I believe and why I believe it. And that in and of itself,
it's lightning striking.
Yeah, I know. I should get those lottery tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we lost power.
Yeah, we lost power. We're back.
There's that lightning strike comment.
Yeah, definitely get your ticket.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the feed cut off or started, because it was kind of everything went down all at once. So everything's back up now, which is cool. But we wanted to talk about, it's kind of the last segment, is money, and that's kind of your space, Sherry.
Right. We were talking about money. The whole topic of you're at a dinner party and you say, and you can, I love what you're saying, and people will tell me their most intimate, disgusting health issues, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then the minute, if you would turn to a money topic, suddenly it's creepy. And
yeah, it's like, I have to hear about Aunt Bertha's sixth toe and how that's causing her troubles.
All right.
But
she's carbuncles.
Yeah, right. But meanwhile, Aunt Bertha can't pay her mortgage, and she won't open up about that, which is something I could probably help her with, or somebody could help her with. I can't amputate the toe, but I can help with the mortgage, and that's a really big thing in our society. Is everyone is just so tight about money. People are really hurting and suffering, and they feel like if they ask for help, then people are going to think that they're less than, because people consider their worth to be directly tied to how much money they make per year. And that is horrible. Mm-hmm. You should never, ever think about, I make six figures, therefore I am somebody. It's like, no, money just makes you more of who you are. If you're a terrible person, money's going to make you more of a terrible person. If you are a great person, money generally will make you more of a great person, because you can do more things with that vehicle. That's how I look at it anyway.
No, that's a great point. But so what would you suggest? What are you teaching your kids? I mean, how, and in your business, you said that you have posted your financial statements public. And I know some of my clients practice the open book management system, right? Where they're very open about what the company's doing and what they're personally doing. And it works really well for some people, and other people makes them really uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I've talked about 2019 and 2020 on the podcast, just financial rundowns, money we've lost, money we've made, and that's been really important. What I teach my kids, and my daughter is 7, so she's kind of just getting into the money and how that works, and she's learning it at school. My wife does homeschooling, so they're going through all of that right now. And it's really cool to see. And a lot of it is just kind of, 3 buckets: saving, giving, and spending, and how you're going to allocate, and why. Again, it goes back to the why question. Why are you doing that? And that's the biggest thing is, if you can answer why with your money, you're going to be really successful in managing it well. If it's just kind of off the cuff and impulse buys and Amazon one clicks, there's no why behind that. And that's why I really like minimalism from a perspective of a lifestyle, is because that it gives you the question and the framework of, everything that you need to own needs to have a purpose. If it doesn't, then you probably shouldn't own it. And that's the core tenet of minimalism. And I really like that.
Yeah. That means it's kind of funny. We're going through this now. My parents are, getting rid of all this stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, they just sent me my report cards from 3rd grade.
Oh my gosh. Let me guess, always.
Yeah. Well, I had a minus in there, and my mom was concerned. But,
it was an A+ minus.
Yeah,
A+ minus.
Yeah, because I wasn't using my time wisely.
Yeah. What were you working on? Separate projects outside school?
Actually, a science fair project. I was just like, what? Anyways, but I digress. But that whole thing of, and then, so my parents are getting rid of stuff. We're getting rid of stuff. And I see my kids are like, they have way more. They're like, don't give us anything. Don't send us anything, because we just got too much stuff. Mm-hmm. And you look at, so now we spend our money more on experiences.
100%.
It's
way better. It's way better. And when you do that, you have something that's actually, you can replay and relive. But, that 4th vase, the 19th doily, those
doilies.
things.
I tell you what,
Those things.
I'm impressed you know that word.
You never have enough doilies. Now, come on. I draw the line at that.
I think you can.
I draw the line at that.
You didn't see my grandma's house. I think
you didn't see my grandma's house.
I think you certainly can have too many doilies.
But the kids, my mom was like, this year we're just going to buy token gifts. And I thought, everything that you've bought in the past is already like in the next garage sale the next year. You know what I mean? We don't even remember what we got the year before and all these things.
Yeah. That's why I love the whole, the Christmas crispy, money. Right? Mm-hmm. The letter in this issue. Okay. In our money section of the magazine, this issue, it's around creating a tradition where you give, and they used $100 bill, but with a letter. Okay. And the letter is, heartfelt, like from dad to the kids and the grandkids, what he loves about them.
Yeah.
And his time shared with them. And it's gotten to be so they don't even care about the money. It's not about the money, right? It's about the letter, the time that's put into writing the letter. Mm-hmm. But the other part of it, I put it in the magazine this time because it's a great way to budget too. Right? People can go crazy at Christmas or holidays with spending, but this is a very easy way to say, okay, I'm going to give this to each person. Here's my budget.
Yeah.
I can stay on budget and know, to Karen's point, that you've given something that next year is not going to be forgotten.
Yeah. And that's another good point too. And I like that. And then, our kids, 7 and 4 at this point where we have a lot of toys. We have a lot of my in-laws, my wife's in-laws, our parents, I guess would be the faster way to say that.
Yeah.
So our parents, you get the grandparents' gifts, the uncles and aunts, and it's just, it gets to be a lot. And it's like, well, how can we, kind of looking at experiences, trips, going and doing things. because that's going to stick more in their mind than that toy that, is going to get broken or, thrown out or whatever in less than a year. So that's like experiential buying is a much better route just for your life overall, because those are things that while you can't put them on a shelf and look at them, they'll always be in your mind. And it's something that you went and did. Just kind of bring it back to the end. You went and executed on an idea.
Yeah. Well, you did. You brought that full circle, didn't you? Good job.
That's great. Yeah, I like the idea of doing acts of service as well for people, right? Like you said.
For sure.
Yeah, finding out how you can help your
know.
aunt with her mortgage and stuff like that.
We had, when we first started, we had a gentleman that we were speaking with who he did like coat drives every Christmas. Every Christmas he went out and did. He took donations and he went and bought coats. And on Christmas Day for years, he went and handed out coats to the homeless in Louisville. And that was his thing. That was all he was concerned about, was getting that done. So yeah, and that goes back to the service that we were talking about. Is that was his purpose. That brings him joy, and it very much involves other people.
Right, and to your point, it's easy to know how to support.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I'm looking for coats. I need
people
gently
can
use
buy-in.
coats or buy coats or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
people that gave him cash or used coats or new coats, like they felt invested and they felt good because they were contributing to something that was cool. It was a good cause, and that's what we want.
Right.
We want buy-in.
Yeah. So pretty much, you're saying in whatever you do, it should be intentional in service of others.
Yeah, like whatever we do, like you should have a really defined why, right? When someone's like, well, why did you start Wayne Media, or why did you do this? Like, I will always, if it's something big in my life, have a reason why, and it'll be detailed because it's something that means a great deal to me. And that's what other people ought to do as well. If you have something that means something to you, then there should be a why behind it. And if not, then that thing will not be around very long.
So, but just to follow up on that, because you have the capability to do the details. You can have the why, but you've also got the skill set for details.
Yeah.
There are, like I said, I've met lots of people that don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
But the action, I guess, the action you can take is to find somebody who has that skill set that can help you move to that next step. Right?
Exactly, because in that you're now building a community of people around you, and that's a big thing. But it's saying why, and then going and finding a way to get people involved in that, where they feel like they're a part of something.
Right. And it's a natural. I mean, like I said, when we're creating was never about doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
It was always about finding those people that had those skills that you needed that were missing, not missing, or just that was not your strength, to bring that together to move the things forward.
Exactly.
I'm not articulating it.
You got it. It's giving people a framework in which they can be successful at what they're good at to help you achieve your goal.
And to understand that that's the process.
Oh, for sure.
I see this all the time. People will go, I don't know how to do this, or I can't do this, or I think I should be able to do this. And then they do nothing.
Yep.
Not recognizing that that's how it works.
Yeah. They get frustrated or impatient. Patience is huge.
Yeah.
Right. Like building this was a big lesson for me in patience, because I am now at the will of other people. Before I could just stay up late and knock things out on my website and, do things and not have to depend on other people. But when you're building something big, you have to trust and depend on other people. And that's a master class in patience. And those that are not patient are not going to have anything meaningful.
Right, but it's also it's a reminder that that's how it works.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right?
I mean,
there's a reason why we have to go to other people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're not good at everything,
And it would be boring if we were.
Oh, for sure.
Another perfect skill set.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Another 300 in bowling.
Yeah.
It's just,
Not to brag, but I actually did bowl 300 once in my life when I was 9 years old.
Oh, for real?
At Royal Oak Bowl. Yeah,
Holy
for real. Just
Yeah.
a total fluke. Talk about
amazing.
struck by lightning.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I went and golfed 18, I shot 18.
Yeah.
It'd get old.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another hole in one.
Another perfect day in paradise.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right.
And that's what makes it cool, is everything is a learning process. And like, if there's one thing that I want people to understand is, like, if you lose, you need to learn, And that's actually a win. It turns into something that's meaningful. If you're never learning, there's no growth, there's no advancement, there's no development, and there's no purpose. So
Right.
anyone that's like, I've arrived, well, you're a narcissist.
Yeah, you're only there for a minute. You're only there for a minute. Enjoy it, and then keep moving. Right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. No, that is true. That's a hard one. That's a real interesting place. Yeah.
Yeah, because every year I get older, it's like, when I opened this place, it's like, oh, wow, I did something cool. And then a year later, I was like, wow, what an idiot. How many dumb things did I do during that period?
Yeah.
And then next year, it's going to be the same thing. Like, oh, this year went really smooth. Then I'm going to reflect back and say, wow, I learned a lot since then.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
And I think we've learned with the podcast and the magazine, everyone we've talked to, well, not everyone, but most people say like it's the growth is in where you're uncomfortable. That's where the growth is. When you're feeling uncomfortable, we're like, kudos, you're growing and changing,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the more uncomfortable and scarier it is, the more important the lesson is.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a safety net factor a friend of mine was telling me about when I told him my game plan was to leave the company I was with and go and start my own thing. And he said, there's going to be a day when you feel like someone took your safety net away. And he's like, I want to know what day that is. Because he's like, right now you have a foot in both worlds. Like if your business fails, you still have a job. So he's like, tell me when that safety net day is. So it was December 16th of 2019 is when that day was. And I called him and I said, hey, safety net's gone. I said, we're floating. And he's like, all right. He's like, I'm excited for you. And it was the biggest motivational day ever. Cause I just, it's like, there's no other options.
Plus, I'm sure you felt nauseous and all those
Oh,
other
for
scary
sure, yeah.
things. Like,
But
oh my
excited
God.
at
Yeah.
the-
It's an exciting thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the true mark of like, okay, we're getting uncomfortable now. We're, we're in a spot where, it's, big things need to happen or progress needs to happen. That's it's an interesting spot to be in.
Yeah.
Looking
That's when
back
you have to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, looking back, it was really cool to have that advice and to be able to realize in that moment, because I don't think I would have thought about it that way had he not said that to me. But it was just a really interesting experience to be able to go through that and be like, all right, kind of like I took one foot off one boat and now I'm on this boat and this is the boat I'm on.
Yeah.
Well, but
ahead.
that's why the militaries throughout history, would burn the boat.
Yeah.
When they were invading, and I don't advocate for that, right? For invading another
it's a perfectly good boat.
right? It's a perfectly good boat. But the point is it changed the mindset of people.
You can't go back in the boat.
You can't go back to the boat.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a really nice analogy, because there's, and it's a matter of, are you all in, half in, and a lot of that is going to determine your drive. Like we all have things that we're a part of, but we're not really all in. We're just there.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And the things that we're all in on is the things that we're going to drive really hard.
I feel like I jumped out of both my boats into the water. And so I'm like, it's like, I don't have a safety net now. So it all feels like growth. So I've been just saying to myself, I look in the mirror and I say, I can do hard and challenging things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
for
can
sure.
always provide for myself and my family. And so it's like, as soon as I say that, it's just like, can't get back in the boat. The boat's gone. I burnt the boat,
Yeah.
So, and that's liberating. That's exciting.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
Don't get back in the boat.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So it's really been fun conversation with you today, Rob.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a great place to be and such good energy. And it's so interesting to learn why that is, right? It's very intentional and it shows in everything you do here at the studio. And you certainly have elevated us with your thinking and your structure that you set up here. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, it means a lot. That means a lot.
It's, I know that we are excited because you provide pieces that are missing for us and what we're wanting to do.
Yeah.
And that's really cool, right? It's fun.
Oh, for sure. It's been a lot of fun kind of learning your guys' background and dynamic and how, like, basically how the whole operation works. It's been an educational experience for me as well. So this is my first time in a space like this, where someone's growing a lifestyle brand and they have a magazine and community and followers. It's a really unique thing, and you guys are doing an exceptional job at it. So it makes my job easier.
Thank you.
So
And it's fun. And I think we also started there. It's fun working with multiple generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have a great
really
team.
cool.
Yeah.
there's a lot of built-in experience there as well. Rather than just like, well, I've done this for 10 years. It doesn't matter if You guys have done marketing for 20 years. You guys have done life in many different ways, longer or shorter, depending on where that generation falls. And that always makes it interesting. Like I've learned, I've learned the most from people that are, older, and that just makes sense, because they've done it longer, and it's something that you need to keep open ears to, and also know that like they're not always right either.
Right.
Totally.
Isn't that funny that you don't realize that till you're older? Like, I should listen to them, and also not.
Yeah. Well, you should hear them. You should hear what they're saying, process it, and then decide if it works or not. But you should always listen. You should always hear what someone has to say and assess it. It doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. But there's literally no loss of just sitting there and listening.
Mm-hmm. Ever.
Yeah, right.
Listening is such a big skill.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, on that happy note, I think we need to be
off to our good fat life.
Thank you, Rob. Fat life. Yeah,
thank you for helping us provide the podcast. And I think it's time to go. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you both. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.